So I got the microphone on a magnet on my Beretta, and nothing to worry about. It's always going to be pointed up. It's just to have a better recording. We're going to be talking about elk scouting, specifically for archery hunters, because the tactics and techniques that archery hunters use versus rifle hunters, they are kind of different. That is my opinion. And I'm going to be specifically talking about scouting for archery hunters and tips and tricks that I have learned. And first of all, we got to understand what are the elk, what are the bulls going to be looking for in September, because most seasons are in September. And most states in September get really hot. The temperature gets really hot, the weather gets hot, and elk are huge animals. They need a lot of water. So the bulls are going to be closer to a water source, not necessarily a big water source like this lake, but they're going to be trying to find a seeping little stream, you know, or a little wallow where they can, that seeps some water, a little stream or a little creek up higher. Why? Because it's cooler up there instead of down low in the valleys. And the elk are going to be looking for water. And then the second thing they're going to be looking is for their staging area. And staging areas, they have two purposes. The first one is a bull is going to walk through and he's going to make 20-30 rubs to let everybody else know this is his living room. He's going to chill here for 3 days, 5 days, 10 days, however long he wants to. And the second reason why they need a staging area is that's where they're going to be mating. That's where the bulls are going to be rounding up the cows, and they're going to be in a smaller area. So they need water. They need a flat spot where they can run around, fight, and mate. And they need food, because if a bull has a herd of 20-30 cows, they're going to need food. They're going to need a lot of food. So 3 things that you got to look for in August when you're scouting for elk. I scout year-round, so, and in the winter it's actually really interesting to track them and see how far they go, where they go, why they go there. So, but in August, you're going to be looking for 3 things. You're going to be looking for water, hidden water that's up higher. You're going to be looking for flat spots. A canyon gets out, and there's a flat spot. And if there's water, it's a flat spot, there's food because there's water, which means the bushes are going to be there, the grass is going to be there, and the elk are going to be there. Another thing that I really advise people to look for is rubs from the previous year. If you know, I mean, if you see that there's a lot of rubs in this area, in this canyon, or in this flat spot, you can guarantee, you know, 95% most likely the elk are going to be generally in the same area next year. So, I mean this year. So if you see rubs from the previous year and the bulls haven't started rubbing yet, you know they're going to be in a general area in this spot because they already like it. You can see it from the previous year. There's water, there's food, there's a flat spot where they can run around, where they can mate, where the bulls can chase the cows and the bulls can fight each other. And those are a few things that I look for. Another thing is animals, I mean deer and elk, they always watch out for predators. So they have to have escape routes. If it's a very small area, very tight area surrounded by cliffs and a lot of rocks, they might not have that one back door, the escape route that they take if a cougar comes into that area, or if a hunter slides into that area. The deer and elk, they're smart and they always know the back door where they're going to be escaping. That's why when you bust a herd, they all run in one direction. They already know where they're going to be going. So look for those escape routes. It might be, you know, a timbered area. It might be a super thick area, or instead it might be a really open area where they just like run through across the ridge and back into the timber or next canyon. Archery hunters and rifle hunters use different tactics, mostly because archery season here in Oregon is a full month. It's about 30 days long, and rifle season is only about, you know, anywhere from 4 to 6 days. And rifle season is way later. It's in November, so you're the elk have already rutted. The bulls are not chasing cows, and they're kind of dispersed, and the herds are not that big because the elk just wander around by themselves most of the time, especially Roosevelt elk. And that's why I'm saying archery hunting tactics are different than rifle. But for scouting, you gotta watch out. You gotta watch out for the rubs. You gotta watch out. You gotta find some water. You gotta find a flat spot. And when I look at my Onyx maps, if it's a new area, I'm gonna hit. There might be 10 canyons, and 5 of those canyons are gonna have that little flat spot. When it gets up to the ridge, it's gonna have that little flat spot. I zoom in. If I see a little bit of green, I'm gonna hit that spot, because green means bushes, green means water, green means it's flat and water is standing there. I'm gonna hit that spot for sure. Another thing that is really interesting is scouting in the winter when there's snow on the ground. I have found that really interesting this past season because I couldn't pattern the elk. It seems like they don't really have just one pattern, one circle they go in, or one triangle that they go in, 3 canyons and come back, loop back. It seems like they're all over the place, which I have found that it is most likely, they probably have a pattern in their head that they go around in, but there's disturbance in the forest. There might be a cougar that's going to spook them out, way before they wanted to leave, or spook them out into the next canyon where they weren't supposed to go, or they weren't planning to go there. So in the snow, you will assume that, oh, these tracks are going over there but you actually don't know why they're going over there. And it's really interesting to track elk, because some of them zigzag, some of them go straight through the bushes, some of them go in the river, some of them go on the ridge, some of them go like 5 miles straight and never stopping. And I was tracking him, and he just never stops to eat, never stops to look, just non-stop walking, 3.5 miles I think it was. And then I ran across cougar tracks, a loop down road 2 miles, they passed the road, loop down 2 more miles, they crossed the road, and then I hopped on the track and I was going after him. And again, 3 miles, that cougar walked 7 miles non-stop, even though there were many deer around, many deer tracks, and he just never stopped. That is an interesting thing to do if you have time in the winter, because it kind of teaches you a lot about the animal. Deer, though, black-tailed deer, are crazy. I have this story of where I was walking through the forest. There's about a foot of snow on the ground, and I saw one track. And I was like, okay, that's it. I'm going to sit here and I'm going to rattle. I'm going to do a couple of sequences of rattling and calling, and hopefully something will come out and I'm going to shoot it. And I'm archery hunting late season black-tailed deer. So I sit there for like 45 minutes, rattling softly, calling, rattling, calling, nothing. And it's snowing. And I was like, you know what? Okay, 45 minutes, I've had enough. And I start hiking up, continuing up the creek, and I see a fresh track. And I was like, oh, there's a fresh track, I'm gonna follow it. The track started going down, then it went across the creek, then it went back across the creek, it went down the creek, then it went across the river, which I had to cross. The river was about 15 feet, 20 feet wide, and I had to find some logs on how to cross that river, cross the river. And those 3 deer, they were walking on top of the bushes, and it seemed like I was following them, and they were doing things on purpose to throw me off, because then they crossed back the river, across, again walking on top of the bushes. The bushes are this tall, and they're walking on top of the bushes, or down below under the bushes, just so to make it really hard for me. So they crossed the river, then they crossed the creek, then they went up the canyon, and guess what? They came all the way up and right to the tree that I was sitting under. It took me an hour and a half to track them to the tree that I was sitting under and rattling from the very beginning. Which means that those deer, they heard me rattle, they heard me call, they started walking, and then They made a big circle, a big loop, especially when they saw that I was after them. Deer are smart. They made a big circle, crossing the creek, crossing the river back, crossing the creek, walking under the bushes. But they still didn't forget about the rattling that I was making an hour and a half before. So they looped down, checked it out under the tree that I was sitting, sniffed my, in the snow, my seat where I was sitting, sniffed around, and then started tracking back from the tracks that I came from, the car where I came. They started going back on my tracks, and then they just jumped into the forest and ran away. And I never knew that. I never knew that because I thought I'm tracking the deer, but the deer were getting away from me, tracking back to the spot where I was sitting and rattling. That is the value of scouting in the winter. And elk, deer, same thing. Elk move a lot too. And cougar as well. 7 miles straight. He doesn't care about deer, doesn't care about elk tracks around. He's not stopping to sniff anything. He's just walking straight down the canyon, 7 miles, nonstop. Crazy, right? But it's just a little eye-opening experience for me, what I did this winter, and learned more about the animals. That's why when I see a cougar track, I'm not gonna freak out and think he's in the next bush sitting there. I probably should. But I could know that he can be 5 miles away from here. In fact, I was checking my trail cameras right now, and my trail camera took one video yesterday of 3 cougars. I went to my car, grabbed my e-call, started calling for like an hour and a half, and I know they could be here, but also they could be 7 miles away from here because it's been yesterday. So, but that's just kind of what you learn about the animals. The more you get out there, the more you get out into the forest, you hike, you see, or you don't see, and you check your trail cameras, you learn about the animals, you learn about the area. And the three things that are gonna help you harvest your trophy is, first, you gotta learn about the animal. What do they like? What do they not like? You have to study them. Second thing is you have to study the area, because the more you go to the same area, the more you learn about it, the more you see, and the more you know, the more you're aware of things. And then if you see a deer run that way, you know what's there. You can loop around and meet him on the other side, or you know that you shouldn't go after him because it's going to be a straight wall, or it's going to be super thick, or it's going to be open. So the more you learn the area, the better, the higher your chances are at killing an animal in that area. And the third thing is you have to be consistent. Go out there every weekend. Of course, a lot of people don't have that much time, but at least make like a 3-day trip every month. February, March, April. Just get out there in your favorite hunting spot and just chill, learn the animal, scout, set up a trail camera, and it's fun. And hopefully this video is going to help you guys to learn a little bit about scouting pre-season, specifically about elk. They like the canyons that have shade in them because it's going to be really hot, and they need the coolness of the canyons. They need water, they need food, and they need a flat spot where they're gonna stage and where they're gonna rut.